a janitor stumbles upon a mysterious man in an old library, sparking a chilling journey into the forgotten past. What secrets lie hidden in the dusty archives? And who is the elusive figure that seems to vanish into the shadows? When I was 28, I took a job as a night janitor at a university library. The pay was decent, and it gave me the solitude I craved. The library was an old Gothic building with high ceilings and endless rows of shelves filled with dusty books. My shift started at 10 p.m. and ended at 6 a.m. My tasks were straightforward: clean the floors, empty the trash, and ensure everything was in order for the students in the morning. One night, about a month into the job, I arrived as usual, clocked in, and began my routine. The library was always eerily quiet, save for the occasional hum of the heating system or the creak of the old wooden floors. I had grown accustomed to these sounds, but that night felt different. There was an uneasy stillness in the air. Around midnight, I reached the third floor, where the rare book section was located. The lights here were dimmer, casting long shadows that seemed to move as I walked by. As I turned a corner, I noticed a faint light coming from one of the study rooms at the end of the aisle. This was unusual, since all lights were supposed to be off, except for my cleaning cart. I approached the room cautiously, peering through the glass door. Inside, a man sat at a table, a small desk lamp illuminating the pages of an old, leather-bound book. He was dressed in a dark suit, his back to me. I knocked softly on the door, but he didn't react. I knocked again, louder this time. "Excuse me, sir. The library is closed," I said, opening the door slightly. The man turned slowly, revealing a face that seemed out of place in time, pale, with deep-set eyes that bore into me. He didn't say a word, just stared. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Sir, you need to leave," I insisted, trying to maintain my composure. Without a word, he stood up, closed the book, and walked past me, disappearing down the aisle. I sighed in relief, but something about him bothered me. I walked over to the table and picked up the book he had been reading. It was a medical text detailing obscure treatments and surgeries from the early 1900s. Inside, I found a handwritten note to Dr. J. Wilkins for his unwavering dedication to the study of the human mind. The name rang a bell. I remembered reading about a Dr. Jonathan Wilkins, a controversial figure in the field of psychiatry who had conducted experiments on patients at the university hospital decades ago. Intrigued, I slipped the note into my pocket and continued my rounds. As the night wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every so often, I thought I saw a shadow move out of the corner of my eye. Around 3 a.m., I decided to take a break in the staff room on the first floor. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat down, trying to calm my nerves. Just as I started to relax, I heard a faint scratching sound coming from the hallway. I set down my cup and opened the door, peering out into the dimly lit corridor. The scratching grew louder, more insistent. It seemed to be coming from the basement. I grabbed my flashlight and headed down the stairs. The basement was a maze of storage rooms and old archives. The scratching sound led me to a locked door marked "Archives, Restricted Access." The door was slightly ajar, and a thin beam of light shone through the crack. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was filled with with shelves of old files and boxes. In the far corner, the man from earlier was crouched over a box, rummaging through its contents. Papers and files were strewn around him. He looked up as I entered, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and desperation. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice trembling. He stood up slowly, holding a file in his hand. "I need to find the truth," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "They hid everything." Before I could respond, he shoved the file into my hands and bolted past me, disappearing into the darkness of the basement. I looked down at the file. It was labeled Patient Records, J. Wilkins. I didn't have the courage to open it. Instead, I called campus security and reported the intruder. They searched the basement, but found no trace of the man. They assured me they would investigate, but I knew they wouldn't find anything. The next day, I handed in my resignation. I couldn't shake the feeling that the past was haunting that library, and I wanted no part of it. To this day, I still wonder what secrets Dr. Wilkins's file held, and who that mysterious man was. But some questions are better left unanswered.